Welcome to Boomcast, the official podcast from Boombox.io.
I'm Music by Lucas.
And I'm Fabio from Noize London.
Boombox is a connection point for music producers, musicians, and engineers to be able to share, store, and synergize creativity.
Don't forget that this month we are giving away $500 worth of studio equipment. So make sure you comment down below on what you would buy with the $500 and don't forget to subscribe.
Today we're actually here in London, in Fabio from Noize London's apartment. And I don't know if you guys saw the podcast a couple podcasts ago, but Fabio interviewed me and Lauren as a Team MBL and talked to us about how we grew that. And today we're going to interview Fabio from Noize London about how you went to 113,000 followers on Instagram in 6 months.
Absolutely. And we started in Nashville, now we're in London. Who knows where we'll do the next podcast together. It's we're moving all around the world, and yeah.
It's been a fun time.
Yeah, it's been really exciting.
So let's talk about how it all started. What made you want to be a music producer? And what kind of was like, you know, maybe the thing that inspired you to get to where you are today?
So originally I was a singer-songwriter for many years, from the age of about 15 to 21. And I had a lot of success. It was great fun. I was signed to Warner Brothers. You know, I had that major label experience. But I kind of recognized as a singer-songwriter that I didn't have full control over my project. And I felt like the thing that was missing was being able to make the music myself within the computer. Within the studio, within Logic, Ableton, whatever. And then I kind of actually left the singing behind and went full-time into production, and then eventually became an engineer.
So like, what was that thing that made you want to jump to that instead of just hiring an engineer?
So I did hire an engineer.
Yeah.
And at a very expensive engineering and quite well-known engineering house, which I shall not name.
Right.
I remember being in the studio. It's like, beautiful studio. It must cost hundreds of thousands to build, and brought all the stems and they did their thing. Come at home, listen to the record, and I was like, no, this is kind of shit. This is kind of, so I emailed back. I said, well, okay, but you know, they know what they're doing. Yeah. Hey, could you adjust this, and this? Version 2 comes back, gets worse.
Gets worse.
And I wasn't like a complete noob. I knew what I was talking about. I knew how to express what I wanted. Mix 3 comes back, even worse. And I was
God.
And I thought, if this person cannot mix my record in the way that I want it to the standard I want it, in their let's call it $200,000
studio. Okay, got it.
Dollar studio.
Pound, even more.
Why can't I do it at home?
Yeah.
And that coincided with other people asking me if I could mix their records and paying me to do it. And I was like...
So you saw the signs. How did you learn? Because it's not something that you can just flip a switch and all of a sudden you're as good as a 200,000 pound studio.
Of course.
What did you learn on YouTube? What was the process?
A lot of it was YouTube. I was signed up to Pure Mix, which is one of those like subscription tutorial platforms. I treated it like a university degree. I'd never been to university, so I challenged myself to study it, and I would watch videos and I would write things out, and then I would try them out, and I was also producing music. So I had projects to be able to apply all these techniques to. And it was just trial and error, and usually it was complicating it, simplifying it, complicating it, simplifying it, and that's always been my journey. Even now, I feel like I'm at a point where I'm complicating everything, and I'm going to make it simple again.
I think the next question I have then, going through this process, is like, okay, so then people start offering you to pay you for this. So now you're doing a different thing for work than you were with the songwriting. Are you still doing the songwriting as well?
No, so after songwriting, I closed my contract with Warner, and they had to pay me to basically leave. They dropped me, but because I completed everything in the contract, I had enough money to live for a year. Okay. So I doubled down, and I was like 40.
What year was this?
2012.
Okay, so it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while, 2012. And so I was doing like 14 hours a day in the studios. My friend said, it's going to take you 7 years to become a producer and engineer. And I was like, I'll do it in 3. You know what I mean? Enter anxiety attack. And
as it does.
Yeah, so I had enough money to live for a year. And then, cash flow ran out. Yeah. I got to get a job. Okay. So I got a job in a pub. Okay. And I thought, this is the most productive thing I've ever done in my life. Okay, it was humbling and it was everything I needed. Right,
Yeah.
it was really important.
Do you know how to make cocktails?
I do, but not from the pub.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
really do cocktails in pubs.
Oh, okay. See,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was like a very British.
Right, so it's basically just,
Just
that
pouring
was
the
the
pints.
job.
I met some great people whilst working there, and that's not to undermine what anyone does in the service industry
Sure, yeah.
or working in a pub, but I recognized for myself that I wasn't learning anything new, and it was really unproductive, and my brain was hungry for information. So I emailed every single academy in London and asked them if they needed a job as a tutor.
Right.
And I would do this every week, even if they said no. Whatever it was, I was like, I will not work at this pub.
Right.
I will not. It's not gonna help me advance in my career. Eventually, I got the position at an academy. There was an opening, and it was between me and another chap. And I got the position, and then shortly after, took position as head tutor.
Oh.
I got to write all my own courses,
Cool.
which was great because I got to keep everything up to date with what was going on in the industry.
Yeah.
We didn't have to follow a curriculum per se.
Cool.
Teaching really solidifies your own learning because you can know how to do something when it comes to production. You can know how to make a fat bass line or make really sick drums, but trying to explain that to someone is actually quite difficult. Someone who's never done it before. And then that made me realize, oh, this is actually how you do it, and this is the step-by-step process.
Got it.
And you probably see on my Instagram a bit of that coming out, the sort of the teacher in me. And I was with them for about 3 years. But yeah, the singing, that was all swept under the rug. I will not sing again. I don't even do karaoke, but yeah.
So did you not ever really enjoy the singing? Was it something where you thought it was your dream, but then you realized that it wasn't really your dream? Or like what made you be like, I'm not going to sing again? I want the dish. I want the Noize London dish.
Honestly, I was surprised I ever got that far as a singer because I was pretty crap.
Okay.
You know, I think I went into music because, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but I know a lot of people relate to it. I went into music because it was just a way of channeling my emotion. I was an emotional kid. I had a lot to say. I was very rebellious, very anarchistic, and that was just it was just a way of getting it out. It was my therapy.
Yeah. Got it.
I got signed to this pop factory originally called Metrophonics, which was an amazing experience. I'm very grateful to them, but it was very 9 to 5. It was where you would turn up, it was like going to the office and then you'd all have lunch together, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. This isn't like, it's not rock and roll.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As a young, impressionable 16-year-old, that's what I wanted.
Right.
Eventually, it was suggested that we should do EDM, and EDM was the big thing. Swedish House Mafia was coming out, Martin Garrix was coming out, and they said, okay, why don't you do EDM? I wasn't really super into it for myself, but they want to do synthwave. And we're sitting in the studio after 2 weeks of writing. It was really intense. Everyone's super psyched. I go outside. I don't know if we can put this on podcast, but I'm going to say it anyway. I go outside and I smoke a joint, and I come back in to the studio. Everyone's jumping on, and this is a nice studio, you know, like Adele recorded at the studio. This is like legit. And I'm sitting there with my hand in my head in my hands. And everyone's like, Yoka, this is gonna be huge. This is amazing. And I'm like, this is so shit. But I was right.
Yeah.
But I was right, and I knew it wasn't, because after that, I realized that it was all too processed for me and too fabricated, and I had lost touch with why I was making music in the first place. When I was at Warner, I must have written 300 songs.
Wow.
And one got released.
Wow.
So for anyone who thinks being signed to the major label is the dream, it can be tough too.
Yeah.
There is another side to it, which I'm sure we'll get into another time.
Does the engineering then, and the way you do things now on Instagram and everything else, does that fulfill more than, like, for your creativity and does it make you get that, drive that you weren't getting from singing and songwriting as much? How do you feel now?
In control.
In control.
Right, there's very few things in life we can control, and I wouldn't say I'm fully in control. That would be cocky to say that, but I would say I'm in control, and I make the connections I want to create, and I've built my own network.
Right.
I'm not dependent.
You're more independent, yeah.
On a label. I think
which is amazing. That's one of the coolest things about social media too.
Exactly, and I think labels are very useful and very helpful. And I'm not saying that labels aren't important by any means. I think they can be, a real important stepping stone for a lot of artists to be able to get their music out there,
right,
and to get it in the right hands, and to leverage a label's resources and network. But my personal position when I went into that label was I was a developing artist.
Right.
And it was also at the time when the music industry was still in its recession.
Right.
Spotify had still not really surfaced.
It was mainly iTunes and
2009, right?
Pandora.
So 360-degree deals were being, if you don't know what a 360-degree deal is, basically means that when the label signs you, they own everything.
Yeah.
Like I paint a picture, and I sell it to Lucas.
Yeah, they own that.
They own part of that too, you know. So
it's like everything. Yeah.
It was a restrictive and a place where they didn't feel like there was a lot of growth.
Good point. Was social media ever a part of any of this, or were you not really doing social media until kind of 6 months ago?
So when I was at the academy, I recognized how important Instagram was. I think we all did. Yeah. I think we were around 2000 and goodbye, Siri. I think around 2000 and
Siri's not being interviewed today.
15, we really started to see Instagram as a billboard, as an advertising billboard, rather than just a place to share photos from Hipstamatic with your friends, right? And the academy where I worked, and some people will know this because you can go look it up, but I'm just not going to mention them, but the academy where I worked was very focused on education and wasn't really focused on the studio and selling the dream, and I felt like that was such an important part of learning music and being part of the music industry. So I said, hey, we should push Instagram. We should do more YouTube videos. Point Blank was doing these amazing Friday seminars every week, and they were just full of incredible information. I couldn't wait to sit down and watch this. I was like, why aren't we doing it? Yeah. We should be at least trying to compete with the #1 production school in the world. The boss turned around to me and said, Instagram's not important. This is a waste of time. Why am I giving you all my energy and all my ideas, which you don't even want to do them when I could do it myself?
Right. And we want to take this time to thank Boombox.io, which again is the home of collaboration. If you have not checked it out, they are sponsoring this podcast and also made this collaboration possible. And they're the best place for you to be able to go and collab with any other music producer, vocalist, engineer, etc. online. And you can start your account at Boombox.io.
And don't forget that this month, Boombox are giving away $500 worth of studio equipment. So comment down below on what you would spend that $500 on, and don't forget to subscribe.
And today's out-of-the-box question that has nothing to do with the topic of the video. It's completely out of the box. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. If you had all of the money in the world, like money's no object, and you can do anything, what would be like your dream life? Would you still be doing like Noize London Instagram posts daily, or would you change that because you have unlimited resources, you can work with anyone? Would you do it differently? Like what would be this like dream scenario?
I mean, you know what would be really cool, and it just popped into my head when you asked the question, but building like a series of amazing studios on a super yacht.
I love that.
And then traveling the world and filming in different locations
super
and having
yacht
people
studio.
on board. Yeah.
Comment below if you would build a super yacht studio as well.
Or if you'd visit it.
Yeah, if you'd visit it too. Comment below if you would visit a super yacht studio.
Get Bezos on the phone.
Now, it might be tough for the audio. The sound waves would be like.
Yeah.
Now what I really want to get into is what is the thing that led to this 6 months of explosive growth for you, where you went to 113, you probably have more than that now, 1,000 followers. What changed? What was like the big thing that you did differently?
Started the YouTube in 2019. First year was awesome, a lot of growth, and I went ham. You know, I put in so much work. I did 2 videos a week, but it took a lot out of me. And then COVID came in, and that kind of accelerated the growth of my business. But YouTube-wise, I went to Canada, and I didn't have a proper studio there. I didn't have a proper backdrop, and the audio from the mic, you could hear all the reflection. I do feel like that affected the quality of the video and potentially how my audience was connecting with it. And then I took 6 months off to just I was like, okay, breathe, come back to it. Came back to it, started putting out 1 video a week consistently, but it just, the wheels weren't turning for me. They just weren't. And 2021 was a weird year because I think everyone thought everything was going to come back to normal. Yeah. And it didn't. So clients of mine who I had in the past weren't there anymore, and Noize as a business was not doing very well. Realistically, it wasn't. So I started a social media agency.
That kind of makes sense though, because like you're saying, like people were like didn't know what to expect, and with that uncertainty, they didn't really necessarily want to release music. They
Or
weren't
invest.
Sure, or invest.
Yeah.
In their, that's a good point.
Because none of the clubs were opening up, and I worked with a lot of electronic artists, as you know. And
so now you started an agency.
I did. I started a social media agency, and I started doing content for other brands because I needed to make money.
Yeah.
And early this year, I was going to sell Noize.
Wow.
I was actually going to sell Noize. I felt like I was like, you know what? I think I'm just done with the music industry. I want to move into something else.
Wow.
I think it's a brutal industry sometimes.
Well, but it's like you said too, though. It's this whole thing of like reflect and then kind of figure out. And I like that you don't kind of trap yourself, but you give yourself freedom to think about these things on a deeper level too. But I'm glad you didn't sell it, because otherwise we wouldn't be here having this conversation with you.
And as I was about to sell it, like I had this, what I call in my life, in this moment of my life, like an ego death. So I lost both my clients, my high-paying clients from the social media agency. Noize wasn't doing well, and then I also basically like broke my back and couldn't walk properly for 2 months.
Wow.
And I could barely make rent.
Wow.
There was like nothing there anymore. And shout out to my assistant, Matt. You've been here for a long time, and I give you a lot of credit for this, but he was like, hey, Fabs, why don't you do Reels? Why don't you do Reels? And I was like, yeah, I suppose so. But I was like, am I going to screen flow this? Oh, it's so complicated.
So before Reels, were you doing photos and like sliders and stuff?
Yeah, just basic stuff. I had 12K.
Okay.
So I had a small following, but I had enough I wasn't starting completely from zero. But to be honest, the followers were decreasing because I was so inactive on the Instagram. It was more of a messaging service. And then he said, do Reels, and I said, okay. And so I looked at what other people were doing, and I noticed a lot of people were just filming with their phone. It was very simple, and I thought, well, I can do that. That's easy for me. I don't have to set up my camera. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do one a day. I'm going to come up with some ideas, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to just do the same thing. And I don't know why I thought the glasses were a good idea. I don't know. It was just like a thing. I had these glasses, and I loved them. I was like, I'm going to wear the glasses. I want to make this my look.
Yeah.
And I think, funnily enough, it's such a silly little thing, but it worked to my advantage because it made me more recognizable.
Yeah, for sure.
And I do this stupid thing where I swivel in the chair.
I love it.
I don't know.
It adds more excitement.
Yeah, and you have your thing too, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We all have our thing and the way we interact with the camera. Mm-hmm. And I just did one a day. And then one video just like took off.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, cool. So continue. And I did it before I took a break, I think I did it for 3 months straight, every day, sometimes twice a day. And just really went ham. And then, as you know, my Instagram got hacked.
Yes.
At 50K, I think it was at about 50K.
And this story is crazy because you would think my Instagram got hacked, it's going to destroy all my work that I got to this point. And then it ends up doing the opposite, and you end up having this huge blast off of followers.
I was oddly calm about the fact that it got hacked. Like really, I was like, you know what? If I can do 50K from 12 to 50K in 3 months, I could do it again.
Yeah.
I was confident I could do it again. So I was like, okay. So at some point, I'll share with everyone the negotiations between me and the hacker because it's actually hilarious. But what happened was the hacker put out a story from my Instagram, which I didn't have access to, saying, I'm selling this account for $350, and I thought, you cheap bastard, right? That hurt. That part more. I was like, you up the ante. Do you know what I mean? Like $3,500. And as a result of that, I can't remember how many people replied to that story.
The DMs were nuts.
Nuts.
Yeah, and
nuts because I got the account back.
What people might not know is that Instagram tracks that kind of engagement. So when they see a huge spike in people DMing you, it brings, of course, more profile visits, et cetera, and it leads Instagram to want to push your account out to more people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this synchronized with another video that I did, which is still my most viewed video to this day, called Useful Websites Part 1. That happened, the video took off, and it was just a spike.
And the hack, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Not that you should hope for your account to get hacked, obviously, but it has to do with the fact that it just goes to the fact that you want to try to build like some excitement, and through doing something to engage your audience can be very helpful. what have you really learned from this experience, and what kind of tips could you give to someone? Maybe what are your 3 tips that you would give to people out there, producers who or singers, etc., that want to grow a following on Instagram or TikTok?
My first tip would be do one thing and do it well. Don't try and cover loads of ground that you're unfamiliar with. People will struggle to find it to be authentic. Mm-hmm. So, and just to go a little bit deeper on that point, I think don't be scared. If what you're doing well is progressing, if you're starting from 0 and you're progressing, and you're like, well, I've got nothing to offer, but what you're offering is actually your journey and how you're progressing, and that's what you're documenting. Mm-hmm. That's what you're doing well, right? If you're particularly good at sound design, that's what you're doing well. It could be anything. Obviously, we're just talking about videos and music production. So the second thing would be consistent. It's such an overrated thing.
Yeah.
But being consistent also means being sustainable. Because consistency and sustainability go hand in hand.
Right.
If you're like, I'm going to do 17 reels every day, you're not going to be consistent with that. It's just not going to happen. Maybe 1 reel a day is too much for you, and that's okay too. You know what I mean? Everyone has their own pace. You'll find times to pick up the pace. There are times where I just don't post for a week, and I'm like, I'm not posted for a week. And actually, I get a lot of growth during that week because all the videos in the back are doing really well. So be really consistent and be sustainable about your approach. And it's better to outdo yourself, as in like, I'm going to do 1 a week and you end up doing 3 a week. Then you're going to feel really good about yourself. And
instead of underdoing, like I'm going to do 2 a day,
exactly.
and you can't keep it up.
It's going to motivate you to do so much more. This is the most powerful tool that has ever been given to us, and it is the most underrated thing. And I always say to people, who are really talented musicians, singers, DJs, producers, I always ask them, do you have a TikTok? Do you have an Instagram? Like, no, it's so embarrassing. And I say, what's embarrassing? The fact that you're so talented and you don't want to share it with people.
I think the biggest thing is that they don't really know what to share, and they see a lot of, and that's why we're here, right? But they see a lot of other artists who basically, I think most artists think that Instagram and these other platforms are like an announcement platform. Like their posts are going to be like, new track coming out soon. Yeah. Here's just very like announcy stuff. Thanks for 100,000 streams on this. They play a show and they're like, thank you Chicago, last night was awesome. And so they don't really know what to post unless something is going on. So if they don't have some big kind of, moment happening, then they're like, well, I don't know what to post. But the secret is to figure out what to post when nothing is going on, I think. Because then you can do that, in between all those moments, and you can stay consistent. And what you should be able to post is something that is, authentic to you. Like you're a studio engineer, so you're posting engineer tips. It makes sense. Or you're posting gear, or you're posting things that really you enjoy. And I think maybe artists just need to figure out what it is that they enjoy, or what their specific talents are, and how they can share those with the world instead of just posting announcements.
And also by showing people what you're doing when there isn't something big going on, you're also building an intimate connection with your audience, because people love a bit of insight, and that creates also familiarity, right? Oh, I have those headphones, or I have that, I have that audio interface, or that's cool that they post at night, or that they also get tired. You're sharing things that maybe you think, well, why would anyone care? Trust me. If it comes from a place, if it comes from your heart and it comes from a place of goodwill, people will care, and people want to feel like they're part of a tribe, and you're just reinforcing that for them.
What are some things, because we're going into a new year?
Yes.
What are some things that you're looking forward to? Maybe one thing that is inspiring you that maybe you're going to do differently? Something
I'm really excited to do is build the Boombox channel with Lucas.
I am too.
I think there's just so much scope for long form content still. And, I've mentioned this before in previous podcasts, but like Lucas and I work really well off each other because we cover 2 different areas in the industry, which I think are really, really important when they work together. There's a beautiful marriage between
studio engineering, tech, all this, and then like marketing. All that stuff. And I like the fact that we both also have a little bit of an insight on each other's stuff too. Like I know a little bit of the back end. I've mastered some of my own songs and stuff like that, and you definitely know about some marketing and social media stuff. So.
And there's great crossover, and it's kind of like, for me, it's a bit of a dream come true, because I've always wanted this team and this network and being able to pick at other people's brains. Because, you know, ultimately, people say never be the smartest person in the room. And I always think that piece of advice is taken so badly, because it doesn't mean that... It doesn't mean that you are
a bunch of people who.
It means that everyone has something to offer,
right?
And you can learn from everyone, and so that's sort of my approach. And I'm just excited to see how we can build the Boombox community and what's going to come out of that.
So don't forget to comment below what you would get with your $500 in studio or software gear, and also make sure that you subscribe, because one of the first 1,000 subscribers is going to win.
Well, you can find both of us in the link in the description below. I am at Noize_London on Instagram.
I'm at Music by Lucas. And don't forget to sign up for Boombox.io, the ultimate tool for collaboration.
Peace!